Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I was recently perusing my catalog of videos to figure out what to film next, and I stumbled upon a very old, as it turned out, video about some queer fantasy book recommendations. And guys, it's been 84 years, I'm not joking.
It's been 84 years.
Today we're going to talk about queer fantasy books that I devoured and that I deem worthy. So buckle up, this is gonna be a long video. Listen, if you are a new subscriber, you don't get it, but if you've been here for a while, you know that I love the Last Binding series by Freya Marske. I've been talking about it non-stop since the last year when I finished reading the first book. So The Last Binding is a trilogy with an overarching plot, but each book follows a different set of characters. The first book is A Marvelous Light, and it's about an Edwardian-esque London, but with a secret magical society. It follows a guy named Robin who is essentially a non-magical person. He doesn't know about magic. His parents die and leave him and his sister practically penniless, which means he has to take a job from one of his enemies. He doesn't really know what the job implies. It sounds like a simple bureaucratic job, sort of a paper pusher job, but when he actually comes into the office, it immediately goes awry. It turns out to be a job of a magical liaison, and remember, he doesn't know anything about magic. The job entails reporting possible magical occurrences to the magical society so they would deal with them. And on his first day, the poor chap is attacked by a person with a magically concealed face and cursed for not disclosing the information that he doesn't possess. The prior holder of the magical liaison position disappeared, and the bad guys want something that he apparently stolen. To his incredible luck, I have to say, the guy that he had to meet at his first day at work, Edwin, decides that he's going to help with that. So they go on this big adventure to figure out why Robin was cursed in the first place, what the curse entails, and how to break it. And of course, what's the object that the bad guys are looking for and where the previous guy is hiding. This is such a romp. It's so incredibly fun. It does tackle more important and serious issues, but at the same time, the writing style and just the vibe of it is fun. I'm a really big fan of these kinds of novels because a lot of the popular fantasy picks tend to lean grimdark, and this one, while it is a serious work of fiction, it's not goofy. It is just very uplifting and fun in its core. It's kind of like those shows about two investigators that have to work a case together, often against their will, and that challenge their prejudices and get to know each other a bit better and fall in love eventually as they do it. I love this kind of media because it's just perfection. It's just a perfect blend of the most perfect things ever. Detective work and romance and adventure, it is really, really good. I love the characters and I was connected to them straight away. Their backstories are incredibly interesting, and overall the plot of the series is engaging. I want to know how it's going to end. The plot twists are wonderfully executed. They're placed in the right spots in the narrative. I love the first book. The second book follows Robin's sister that we get to meet in the first book, and it's a continuation of the larger plot, but it's also a different setting. It's set on a ship, and I would say this one is more of a cozy mystery, so I guess people that love cozy mysteries would like this one better. I personally was more of a fan of the first book because I love the adventure plots. In the second book, Maud is looking for another object that has to do with the wider plot, and she meets a magician named Violet who ran off from her home in the UK and started performing in the US because of the expectations that were put on her and because she wanted a different life outside of the boundaries of the pretty sexist magical society. But she has to come back to the UK because her aunt left her an inheritance and she has to claim it. So when Maud's companion is murdered on the ship and she has to investigate who is the murderer and where is the object her companion was hiding this whole time, Violet offers to help, and there are a few other characters there on the ship that were part of the first book as well. So we get this fun group dynamic as they get to work on the case. It is pretty fun. I really enjoyed the group shenanigans. In my opinion, Freya Marske also has a really good grasp on dialogue and she writes incredible banter, so it's always fun to read interactions that she writes between different characters. I was not as convinced by the romantic relationship in this book between Maud and Violet, unlike the relationship between her brother and Edwin, because I think by the end of the book, they have not truly let it all hang out, as in they have not truly addressed their own personal issues, but they are together by the end of the story, and I suspect they are gonna appear in the third book as well, so we might get a little bit more of a satisfying ending to their storyline. But overall, I'm obsessed with the series and I cannot wait to read the third book, and I highly recommend to jump on the ship as well. Another series that I recently read and that I'm absolutely in love with is the Green Creek series by TJ Klune. And you will rightfully ask where I was this whole time, because it's an older series and it's been released fully quite a bit ago. And I will only be able to tell you that I was ignorant because the series is top-notch and I love it. I filmed a whole reading vlog of it with immediate reactions to certain scenes, so if you want to check it out, I'm going to link it. It has this quality about it that makes me feel like I'm going to be very nostalgic about it one day. I realized that I'm getting way too attached to these characters, and it was pretty early on, so that's unusual. Because TJ Klune is just really good at writing group dynamics and relationships between characters. He's really good at writing found families that you'd actually want to be a part of, so I have to give him props for that, if not for anything else. The Green Creek series is a supernatural romance series with a lot of fantasy elements. It's hard to say which is the major genre, the fantasy or the romance. I think you can consider this series both of these things because it feels very equally balanced. The Wolf Song, the first book of the series, is about Joe, who was abandoned as a child by his father and was raised by his mom, had to grow up very quickly because he was determined to take care of his mom. He is constantly circling back to that important moment in his life until he meets a boy named Joe. Joe is much younger than him and he immediately clings to him and wants to be his best friend, wants to follow him around. He is a little odd, and Ox can't really tell why this boy is attached to him so much and what is the reason behind his oddities. But then Joe introduces Ox to his family, and it turns out that it's a family of werewolves. It's a werewolf pack. The Bennett family lets Ox into the pack and they grow very attached to him as well. And it's basically the story about this abandoned kid that finally gets a family. It's adventurous, it's fun, it gets a little dark sometimes. It's about prophecies, drama. It's really fun. I think it would be, and I've put in comparison to some, but it reminds me of Teen Wolf, but when Teen Wolf was actually good. So if you miss those days, the days when Teen Wolf was actually good, and you want something gayer than Teen Wolf, this is perfect for you. A book that I read a couple of days ago and that surprised me in the best way possible is Malice by Alice Walter. I've heard about it here and there, and the reviews were mostly positive, but I hesitated to pick it up because I thought that it's a young adult novel, and I don't read much young adult anymore. But turns out it is an adult fantasy novel, a fantasy duology, I believe, and it genuinely is so well done. It is a retelling of the Sleeping Beauty with more involved fae lore, and it also is a sapphic romance at the same time between Maleficent and Aurora, which is something that I was very curious about because, you know, I felt the vibes. It is a villain point of view, which I usually love because it offers something different. The protagonist is the Maleficent character, Alice, or how her sister call her Malice. She is a half Willa, and she lives in a kingdom, formerly queendom, named Briar. Half Willa is basically a half dark fae. Dark fae or Willa were exterminated by an alliance of light fae and humans. Light fae are much weaker than dark fae, so they could not do it on their own, and as a part of this alliance, light fae promised to humans, the Briar humans specifically, that they're going to give them a little bit of their magic. And this manifested in light fae gracing certain kids with magical powers. These graces were taken from their parents and brought up in a specific facility that taught them how to use their magic for the good of the Briar people. Their mission in the Briar society is to help the Briar people with their ailments. And more often than not, these ailments are pretty insignificant, I would even say petty. There are a few different types of races, but for example, what they can help with is making a person a little prettier, or helping them with some kind of a decision by offering their superior logic skills. Alice is different from other graces. First of all, she's not a real grace because she's not part light fae, she's part dark fae, and her powers are the powers of destruction. She cannot do good things with her magic, but she can do other things that just as equally sought out for, though she is despised for them. People come to her to curse their peers and their competitors, to give them words or to make their voice disappear, or any of those kinds of things. One day on a walk, Alice stumbles upon a cursed man that is bound to a tower, and in conversation with each other they figure out that they're both of the same kin. So he is from the same birthplace as she is. He might not be Villa, but he is a shapeshifter, which is a type of demon. She can't release him, but he starts teaching her how to use her powers properly, which gives her an advantage among other graces and among the people in Briar. This meeting triggers a set of situations that change Alice's life forever. She gets to finally visit the royal court, and she meets the cursed princess Aurora that has to find her true love or she will die, and she starts helping her in possibly breaking the curse without needing to kiss all the nasty men that her parents are throwing at her. It is such a well done novel in terms of plot structure and character development and all the little things that keep you going, the suspense element. While I found some plot twists a little simplistic and the first part is a little heavy on the world building and info dumping, something just kept me going the whole time. I was just so obsessed and I read it so fast. I love Alice. I love the lore around this novel. I think it was intelligently crafted, and I am willing to forgive the little hiccups just because of that. If you wanted to read a fae fantasy with a sapphic couple, look no further. It is really good. I am looking forward to the second book. I was very surprised by this, and I cannot believe that it took me so much time to finally pick up. For the longest time, I'm telling you, I thought it's young adult and I thought it's gonna be so cheesy and childish, but it's not. It's so good. I love it. The Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell might not have been my absolute favorite sci-fi novel, but I still really enjoyed it, and I think other people enjoyed it more than me. I just could not help myself but pick it apart because I saw some faults, but I know that a lot of people love it and they don't care about it, so I'm going to recommend it regardless. So Winter's Orbit is a sci-fi / gay romance. Once again, hard to say which one is more prevalent because it's equally balanced, and it follows Kiem, who is a minor prince of his home planet. He is very irresponsible, he is kind of empty-headed, but he's forced to politically marry, and his partner is a representative from a different planet. His name is Jainan. He is a recent widower. His husband died in a suspicious accident, and his husband also was one of Kiem's distant relatives. So to keep the balance and the peace, the government of Kiem's planet needs Jainan to be married to one of the other princes. Jainan's people are famous for not wanting to pay fealty to Kiem's people. So it's kind of a forced decision for both of them. Neither of them wants to be a part of this marriage. And it seems also that Jainan's previous marriage was abusive. So essentially it's a marriage of two unwilling parties, but they are pretty civil to each other. It's not one of those books where they immediately become enemies and are trying to kill each other. They're trying to work with each other because they understand that they have to somehow work with each other. And in the meantime, they also figure out that something was sus in the way Jainan's previous husband died, and trying to investigate it. There's a bigger political plot in this book, some court actions, some backstabbing, all those fun things. My minor complaints were with the way the relationship was very conveniently developed, and some situations that felt like wish fulfillment, in the way fan fiction feels like wish fulfillment. But if you don't care about that, at all, you're going to love it. Now, I obviously have to talk about The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. It's been a while since this book was released, and I feel like everyone read it already, but I have to mention it because it turns out I never mentioned it in my list videos. So we're just going to go with the basics. I'm just going to tell you what the plot is about and tell you to read it if you have not read it already, because it's a fun, chill fantasy book. It's in the cozier subsection of fantasy. The story follows a middle-aged man named Linus. He struggles with self-confidence and with self-acceptance, and he works as a paper pusher for an institution that tracks and traps magical humans and make sure they cannot harm anyone. In an unusual turn of events, he's forced to take a very challenging job to go and check on magical kids in the House in the Cerulean Sea, which is a facility for kids that are particularly bad cases. And there he meets a man named Arthur, who is a headmaster of this house, and who is trying to facilitate a kinder, better place for these children. Linus was determined to keep the conduct and to follow his office's rules, but when he's introduced to these kids, he warms up to them, and he also falls in love with Arthur, and he feels like he cannot betray them anymore. So it's one of those novels that still does have conflict, but it's not one of those grim, dark, very difficult to consume, very hardcore fantasy novels. I really enjoy it, a lot of people really enjoy it, but we're not going to stop for a long time here because everyone knows about it. The book that is a complete opposite of that and a contrast to The House in the Cerulean Sea is Summer Suns by Mandelo, and I don't love it less. I actually think that I love it more. This is a truly fucked up story. It's a dark academia, Southern Gothic, and it is angsty. It is about some ancient curses and feelings that we don't want to feel. It's about a guy named Andrew whose best friend Eddie, like his bestest friend, he's also secretly in love with, goes to a university to figure out if they both should continue their academic careers there, and suddenly kills himself. Andrew doesn't believe that Eddie has done it, but the police doesn't want to investigate it, so he follows him to his house, meets his friends that he spent a lot of time with, and is trying to figure out what actually happened. Their situation is slightly more complicated because they both saw revenants. It is an ability that they both had because of an accident that they got in together as children, and Andrew suspects that these revenants could have played a part in Eddie's death. This is dark. It's a really dark novel, like truly dark. It's extremely angsty. It is so satisfying though still. The angst is like the most delicious angst ever. I loved the characters, the dynamics, the gray areas that were explored. It's an exemplary novel and I don't know why it's not more popular. I'm also going to recommend you 2 adult novellas. We're not going to talk about young adult books in this video because I just don't want to. The novellas are Even Though I Knew the End by Polk. You know that I've loved it if you've seen my other videos. It's about a magical detective in sort of prohibition era type world that struck a deal with the demon, and her time is getting to an end, but she wants to investigate this last case to leave money for her girlfriend to live and not need for anything after she dies, the protagonist. This is very supernatural TV show, I mean, very Constantine. Personally, I'm reminded more of Constantine because I don't care about the supernatural anymore. I've only seen like maybe 2 or 3 seasons. The world building is very interesting. I have not read many books like this one, and if you're looking for a shorter one, pick it up. The second novella is The Monster of Elendhaven by Jennifer Giesbrecht. It's been a while since I recommended this one as well, and I don't think I recommended it as a queer book. This is a really fun one, and it's dark but in a fun way. It's a story about a magician and a monster that ally to bring an apocalypse to this small town that the magician hates. There's also romantic and sexual tension between them because in exchange for help, the monster wants magician for himself. The dynamics very Hannibal-esque, so if you've seen the show, you know what I mean. These are all the books that I want to recommend. If you want me to do a young adult fantasy book update for queer books, tell me about it in the comments down below. I've read quite a few that are good. I'm just not really excited about them as much anymore, but I will gladly do a video for you. This is it. Thank you for watching this video. If you reached this part, leave a heart emoji in your favorite color, and I will see you soon with another video. But until then,